Arsenal officially announced the signing of Cristhian Mosquera. Benjamin Sesko could be playing against us in the Premier League next season. That's after Alexander Isak has told Newcastle he wants to explore, his options. And of course, Viktor Gyökeres is edging ever closer to completing his Arsenal move. He's set to arrive apparently in London on Friday. Lots and lots to get into on this extra edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Let's get into it, shall we? Hey everybody, how are we doing? Welcome back to another live episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. I heard you guys yesterday. I heard you in the live chat when many of you told me that the morning streams, they don't work for you. I figured where possible, we'll try and bring you some later on in the day as well. We're not going to change our normal sort of pattern. We're going to stick to 10 a.m. UK time, of course. But if we can do an extra stream and there's extra stuff to talk about, and there certainly is today, then we'll make sure that we are here, that we are covering it, that we are having the conversation. And there's quite a bit to get into today. Look, it was Sod's Law. I had a really great chat earlier on with Adam Keys from the Arsenal Therapy podcast. That's the last episode on the channel, last episode on your feed if you're an audio podcast listener. And we talked about a wide variety of things. We had a really, really good chat. I really enjoyed it. One of my favorite episodes of late. Go and check it out. But shortly after we finished that episode, we had a bit of an update on Viktor Gyökeres. And then we got some news about Alexander Isak. And then we heard that Newcastle will be looking at Benjamin Sesko in case Alexander Isak leaves. And then we got the announcement of Cristhian Mosquera's arrival. And it's all been pretty hectic and pretty manic on this Thursday here in London. So let's start with the good news from an Arsenal perspective. Let's start with the Viktor Gyökeres thing, right? So it looks like, and Sky reported this earlier, that he'll be arriving in London on Friday to complete his move to the Arsenal. Now, this is interesting because there were reports a few days ago, I think Miguel Delaney put this out, claiming that he was actually going to fly over to Singapore straight away to join up with the Arsenal team, and that the medical would take place over there. I think it was Miguel Delaney that said that. Forgive me if I've got that wrong. But yeah, he was going to go over there. He was going to do the medical over there. They were probably going to put the announcement video together over there. And then he was going to be announced and hopefully available to play some part in one of our games over on the Asian tour. Is he going from Mallorca, where we think he was, to London and then Singapore? Not entirely sure, if I'm being honest with you. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's doing this or he's doing that. But what we do know is that Viktor Gyökeres is due to complete his move tomorrow. So there are some bits and pieces, I'd imagine, media duties and a load of other things that need to be done. Medical probably needs to be complete as well, completed. And once that's all done, we'll hear of Viktor Gyökeres' arrival officially. And that is obviously very, very good news. There's a bit of revisionism about the signing now, though, because Alexander Isak has told Newcastle that he wants to explore his options. And that did at least temporarily spark a bit of a debate online. You know, Arsenal aren't going to go and get Isak as well, are they? Surely no. They couldn't, could they? There was a bit of that. But look, the truth is Arsenal are not going to sign Alexander Isak now. And he would have been my number one choice. No question about that going into the summer. But we've settled on Viktor Gyökeres. We've worked incredibly hard to get this deal done. And we are at a point where it's very, very close to completion. So there's no point now discussing the possibility of Isak to Arsenal because it's just not going to happen. And I don't want the speculation to kind of dampen the spirits of those who are really excited about the fact that we've just signed Viktor Gyökeres, or that we're very, very close at the time of recording to completing it. Let's go through the Mosquera stuff. Obviously, we've known he's going to be an Arsenal player for quite some time now. It's been a deal that was very close to completion. We also saw a picture, didn't we, going around on social media of Mosquera with some of his Arsenal teammates, taken by a fan in Singapore. They were obviously walking. I think it might have been in a shopping mall or something like that. And the picture was taken. And I think at that point, it was kind of like, well, yeah, we might as well just announce it now. But I expect Mosquera to be involved in the game coming up on Sunday against, incidentally, Newcastle United. Let's have a look at what they've said over on the Arsenal website then about Cristhian Mosquera's arrival. Here's the official announcement page for those of you watching us live on YouTube. If you're listening, don't worry. We'll talk you through it. Arsenal say, we're delighted to announce that Spain under-21 international Cristhian Mosquera has joined us on a long-term contract. The 21-year-old defender arrives from Valencia, where he made 90 appearances in all competitions. There's a Cristhian Mosquera interview that you can watch. He was with Valencia's academy from the age of 12, progressing through the youth ranks before making his first team debut in the Copa del Rey as a 17-year-old back in January 2022. His first La Liga appearance came just days later, starting at the Mestalla in a 1-1 draw against Sevilla. Ahead of the 23-24 campaign, he was officially promoted to the first team squad, soon becoming an integral part of the club's defence. Last season saw Cristhian start 37 of 38 league matches, playing every minute during those appearances. Born in Spain, but also eligible to play for Colombia, Cristhian has made 34 appearances at youth level for Spain between the under 15s and under 21 levels. He was also a member of the gold medal winning squad at the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Now, normally when they say like X country under 21 international or X country's youth player, I don't really put that much weight on it. Normally I look at it and I go, well, you know, it's youth football, isn't it? And there's a lot of players that look incredibly, competent at youth level, but then they make that step up and they get lost and they fall off and they fall by the wayside. If there's one country where being a youth international actually carries weight and means something, actually it's probably two countries. I would say there's France and there's Spain, because those two nations over the last decade have just produced player after player after player. And so to be quite a prominent part of the Spanish youth setup, for me, it's really, really encouraging. It's really, really great to hear and great to read. Now, on the player, Andrea Berta said this: we're very happy and excited to have signed a hugely talented young player in Cristhian Mosquera. We identified him as one of the strongest young defenders in European football, and he's an important signing for our future. He's a versatile defender who will strengthen our squad, and we cannot wait to see him playing for us. Together with everybody at the club, we warmly welcome Cristhian and his family to Arsenal. Mikel Arteta says, we're delighted to welcome Cristhian to Arsenal as a 21-year-old defender. He's already performed consistently well with significant experience in La Liga. He's an intelligent player with good pace who can play centrally and on both sides. He's a young player with exciting talent and enormous potential who will fit well into our squad as we continue to prepare for next season. He adds good quality to our squad, and we look forward to working with him and making him feel at home with us. From all of us, we welcome him and his family. Now, he's going to be wearing the number 3 shirt, and a lot of people thought it looked pretty cool in the pictures, but a lot of people out there were like, oh, Kieran Tierney. The sad moment you realize that Kieran Tierney's gone again. But yeah, look, Cristhian Mosquera will wear the number 3 shirt, and it says that he'll join up with the squad on the preseason tour in Asia. Guess what, guys? He's already with the squad. We've seen the pictures going around on the social media, haven't we? So yeah, look, really pleased with that signing. We did a scouting video here on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast over on Patreon. And as we've now had that official announcement, you know what that means? It means the Patreon video is open for 24 hours to everybody. You can go over, have a look. There's some footage of Cristhian Mosquera. I took you through it. I shared some of my thoughts and feelings on the player. And I came away from it feeling really, really positive about what this young man can bring to the group. So the link is in the description. Go and check it out. Cristhian Mosquera is officially an Arsenal player. And I'd imagine within the next 48 hours, we'll probably hear of Viktor Gyökeres being one too. So lots of excitement around Arsenal at the moment as they look to, as they close in on completing signing number 6, having just announced signing number 5. Have I counted them right? I think I have. Right, let's move on, because there's been some big news, not exactly about Arsenal this afternoon, but that I think is of interest to Arsenal fans because of all the previous conversations we've been having. So let's get into that right after this, shall we? Okay, elsewhere, we have heard today that Alexander Isak has informed Newcastle United that he would like to explore his options. Now, this was reported initially by Craig Hope, I think, and shortly afterwards, it was reported by David Ornstein. David Ornstein said Alexander Isak wants to leave Newcastle United. So that's not exploring these options. That is, I want to go. Absence from the Celtic friendly plus the Asia tour was the 25-year-old's preference. At least we don't have to face him when we play him on Sunday. Newcastle keen for the Sweden international striker to stay on an improved deal, but are also now exploring potential replacements. I kind of admire the fact that throughout the Isak speculation, which has been sort of there and in existence for probably the best part of at least 6 months, 8 months now. I mean, I remember many, many times towards the back end of last season going into Talk Sport and joking with my pal and Newcastle United fan, Ollie Klink, about this and saying, you know, we're going to get him. We're going to take him away from you. He wants to leave. He wants to go. And Ollie was very steadfast, as were most Newcastle supporters, because that's what we were hearing at the time, that actually Alexander Isak might have been open to a move to a potentially bigger club, but wasn't going to force it, wasn't going to push. And I think when Newcastle United qualified for the Champions League, I think a lot of people thought, well, that's that then. Newcastle aren't going to have a problem holding on to their star man as a result. Now, it's always been known that if Newcastle are to sell, they are going to demand top whack. And when I say top whack, we're talking north of 120, 130 million pounds, which is a lot of money. And I think if there's one thing that would concern me about dropping that kind of money on Alexander Isak, it would be his injury history. Now, having said that, going into this summer, I was adamant that if it was possible, I would be all over it. That is the guy that would really move the needle. There'll be no question about it. Like, we talked loads about Sesko and we talked loads about his potential. And we talked loads about whether or not he was a sure thing. And the answer was no, he was never a sure thing. Then we moved to Viktor Gyökeres, who I thought was more of a sure thing. But is anybody really a sure thing? There's not many out there that you'd put in that category. You would, though, with Alexander Isak, because he is that damn good a striker that he would move the needle for pretty much any team in world football. But it became apparent as the summer went on that Arsenal were looking elsewhere. And I don't blame them for looking elsewhere because A, the price tag is crazy and is a lot. But B, there was no kind of real, I don't think, openness from Alexander Isak's side of things about the wanting of a move. Now, look, I know there's going to be a lot of Arsenal fans out there that would be really disappointed to see Alexander Isak move this summer and it not be to Arsenal, myself included, because I said, many, many weeks ago now, probably even months ago, that if there's a possibility, we got to try it and we have to exhaust that option because if we do that and it doesn't happen and it's not going to materialize and there's no way, and then we turn our attention elsewhere, I'll say fair play to Arsenal Football Club. You've done your bit. You tried. And even now, like, I'm not going to sit there and sort of bleat on about how badly Arsenal have handled this or anything like that, because I don't think that's the case. Arsenal would have put the feelers out. Arsenal would have tested the water with Newcastle United, officially or unofficially, and would have kept getting the same message via intermediaries, maybe, who knows, but they would have kept getting the same message. Alexander Isak is not for sale. Alexander Isak is not going anywhere. Alexander Isak is under contract at Newcastle United, so don't bother. Liverpool, just last week, made a move, made an inquiry to Newcastle United about Alexander Isak, and what were they told? Exactly the same thing. And just a few days later, Liverpool turned their attentions to Hugo Ekitike, someone that Newcastle themselves, incidentally, were looking at, and they went and accelerated on that, got that deal done, and now they've got Hugo Ekitike in through the door. Now, what I find really, really interesting about all of this is the timing of it. Because surely Alexander Isak would have made his feelings clear before the two most likely clubs to come in for him went out and got their strikers. So then I'm starting to think, is Alexander Isak playing this really, really badly? Has he played this really, really badly? Or is this information that Newcastle have known for a while? Because for a little bit, we've been told that he's got a thigh injury and he's been training alone and he hasn't traveled to friendlies and he wasn't going on the preseason tour, etc., etc. I would imagine, I would guess, because a lot of the time when we hear the information, we're behind the curve. I would suspect that Alexander Isak made these feelings clear a little while ago. But for him to be digging his heels in, not going on the preseason tour and all the rest of it, it would suggest that he believes that there is a club out there that is willing to break the bank to sign him. Now, let me just put it out there nice and clear. I don't think it's us. Okay? I think it's highly, highly unlikely that Arsenal go in for Alexander Isak now. We're about to sign Viktor Gyökeres, as we've already discussed. He's the player coming in. He's the one that's going to lead the line. It's been a long, old, drawn-out saga, but during that saga, we've sort of fallen in love with Viktor Gyökeres because we feel that real kind of passion and desire that he has put across in order to come and join our football club, right? So I'm fine with what we've done. I'm happy with what we've done. But if it's not us, is it Liverpool? Well, they've just gone and dropped a lot of money on Hugo Ekitike. But the interesting thing about Liverpool is I think they've got big sales to make this summer. You know, Luis Diaz is the subject of a lot of interest. Bayern Munich have been very sort of keen on him. Then you've got people like Harvey Elliott that I think Liverpool could get 30, 35, maybe even 40 million pounds for. So I think if there's anybody out there that is able to sign Alexander Isak on top of the business that they've already done, it is Liverpool. Yes, there's rumors and there's reports of a Saudi bid being prepared, but I think Alexander Isak wants Liverpool and Liverpool want Alexander Isak. Now, let me tell you this. He's got some crazy salary demands. He's been asking for £300,000 a week at Newcastle United. I don't think that is as much of a problem for Liverpool. I think Liverpool could make that happen. But can anybody get to the £500,000 a week that is being talked about from Saudi? So it's a fascinating one, isn't it? Is he going to, is he going to just jump at the money and go to Saudi? Has he got his eyes set on a move to Liverpool? Is that a thing? Is that going to happen? Because let me tell you this, if Liverpool end up with Ekitike, who they've already got, and Alexander Isak, on top of what they already have in terms of weaponry, the Cody Gakpos of this world, the Mo Salahs of this world, and the way they contribute goals from midfield, then they are clearly far and away the favourites for the Premier League title next season. I would say that. I would say that. Newcastle, I mean, as for them, look, I don't really blame Newcastle United for wanting to dig their heels in and wanting to keep their best player and believing that they can do so as long as they are all united and stick to their guns. I also don't blame Liverpool for doing what they did last week, which has seemingly unsettled Alexander Isak because, a week after that approach, we're hearing that he wants to leave. I mean, the timing is, it just fits, doesn't it? It sounds like Liverpool are ready to go back in and that Liverpool are ready to do this deal. And they need a little bit from Alexander Isak in terms of pushing from his side. And if they get that, there's a world in which the fee becomes a little bit more reasonable. And Liverpool, with the sales that they still have to make and still plan to make between now and the end of the window, they could easily get him. So I don't blame Newcastle for being very, very clear and very, very strong on it up until now. I don't blame Liverpool for doing what they're doing because they're ultimately trying to land probably the Premier League's best striker. I don't blame Alexander Isak if he really does want out. There is something in Craig Hope's article that sort of explains a bit of an issue behind the scenes at Newcastle United, something that Alexander Isak and his representatives weren't entirely happy with. Now, that article, when I went to click on it, just like moments before going live, it was behind a paywall, so I haven't actually read it, annoyingly. But clearly, there's been something rumbling on in the background between Alexander Isak and Newcastle, and now we're at a point where they've got a really unhappy player. They've set a really high price point. There's a club in Liverpool that are circling and could make it happen. Like, I don't think Arsenal could make it happen. Not with the outlay that they've committed already. I think Liverpool could, because Liverpool have major sales to make. We don't really. I mean, we've been talking a lot about like the potential of Trossard leaving, for example, right? We've been talking about the potential of Zinchenko leaving. Some people have talked about Jakub Kiwior maybe leaving. You know, we might see some of those players leave, but we don't really stand to get mega money for anyone. Unless the Saudis come in with a big bid for Gabriel Martinelli, we're not bringing in a mega amount of money that will essentially fund or mostly fund a move for Alexander Isak, the dream target as far as Arsenal fans are concerned. But it's important that we don't get sucked into this kind of crazy striker merry-go-round now. We've got our man. We identified him. We've worked incredibly hard for a long, long time now to get this deal on the verge of being completed, and we're almost there. So there's no point in sitting there going, oh, if only, because if we weren't close to signing a striker by now on July 24th, people would be going absolutely batshit crazy about it. So we've got our guy. Forget about Alexander Isak in the sense of him coming to us. But I do think this is a really fascinating thing, and a story that I think is going to rumble on for a good while, because everybody wants to stand their ground, right? Newcastle want to keep their best player. If they're not going to keep their best player, they are going to ensure that they are compensated for that. And, Liverpool are going to be waiting there, hoping that Alexander Isak, being difficult behind the scenes, is going to push Newcastle into a position where they feel like they have no choice. Now, for Newcastle, this must be an incredibly frustrating window. They have tried for multiple players who have opted to go elsewhere. They tried for Hugo Ekitike, Liverpool come in, blow him out of the water, just days after unsettling their best player. And now it kind of begs the question of, will the likes of Newcastle ever be able to catch up with the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City, for instance? Because even when they qualify for the Champions League, even when it looks like everything's going brilliantly under Eddie Howe, they are still vulnerable to losing their best players to the bigger clubs. And it just speaks to the kind of hierarchy, doesn't it, of the Premier League and of the elite. And Newcastle will be bitterly frustrated and disappointed by this. But what adds another layer to this for us as Arsenal fans? Now, listen, again, I'm going to say it for the last time because I don't feel like I need to keep saying it. I don't feel like I need to keep saying it because I am genuinely cool with the business that we've done now with Viktor Gyökeres, seemingly arriving on Friday. But I am going to sit back with a bucket of popcorn and enjoy watching this all play out, unless Isak ends up at Liverpool, which significantly reduces our chances of winning the Premier League. But Newcastle was said to be looking at Benjamin Sesko now. Benjamin Sesko. And this is going to be really, really interesting, isn't it? Because Arsenal were interested in this player and were strongly interested in this player. This wasn't just a tentative inquiry, as some people put it. This wasn't just Arsenal exploring the possibility. No, it was none of that. Arsenal were really keen on bringing Benjamin Sesko to the football club, but were seemingly put off by RB Leipzig's demands. And we've ended up signing Viktor Gyökeres for like £65 million in total. And that's inclusive of around about £10 million of add-ons. Whereas had we gone for Benjamin Sesko, who represents a greater risk, maybe there's a potential greater upside on him because he's younger and he's still developing and all the rest of it. But, we would have had to spend like £80 million to get him in. So that's quite the jump, isn't it? Like, it's a big old jump because RB Leipzig wanted 90 million euros and were not willing to budge at less than that. Now that Arsenal have turned away, now that Arsenal pivoted and got someone else, will RB Leipzig drop their demands for Benjamin Sesko? This is what I'm really, really interested to see. Will Benjamin Sesko's people be sort of pushing harder this time to get their player out of RB Leipzig? Or will he look at it and go, Newcastle United, that doesn't appeal to me a great deal more than staying at RB Leipzig does? Honestly, I don't know. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to either of those two clubs. I just don't know how this is going to pan out. And this is what makes it fascinating. We can sit back now knowing that we've got our striker, put our feet up, crack open a pack of popcorn, and just watch it all play out. And it's going to be really, really interesting. It really, really is. Right, we're going to take a really short pause. When we come back, we're going to jump into the chat box and get your thoughts and questions on all the news we've discussed, plus more. Get involved. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. You heard the boy. Like and subscribe. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, Harry Symeou. Get involved in the live chat. I'd love to hear from you. Right. What was I going to say? I was going to say something to you and I forgot. Oh, yeah, that's it. As I mentioned a little bit earlier on, but there's more of you on the stream now. So I'll tell you again, our Cristhian Mosquera scouting video is available to everybody for the next 24 hours. The link is in the description below. So go and check it out. Can we get to 500 likes on tonight's stream? That would be amazing if we could. Where are we at the moment? Let's just have a quick check-in because there are well over 700 of you watching us. We have got just 113 likes on the board. Come on, guys, we're slacking. Let's up that. Let's get as close to that 500 mark as we possibly can between now and the end of the stream. Okay, let's take some of your thoughts on all of this from the live chat. Theo says, popcorn is overrated. I'll tell you what I don't like about popcorn, seeing as we're going off topic a little bit here. I don't like that it gets stuck in the back of my throat. Like, I love the taste of it. I really enjoy a bit of popcorn from time to time. But I always find myself having to try and either hook out a piece of popcorn from the back of my throat or drinking loads and loads and loads of water because I am desperately trying to wash it down. So it never goes well for me. Galvo says, got to give Liverpool credit. Very few bad moves in terms of transfers in the last few years. No other club can say that. Mate, I tip my hat to them. You know, if they go and get Alexander Isak as well, that would be a phenomenal window. A phenomenal window. And I was someone who was, when I was working on some panel shows last season, was quite critical of the fact that there they were, having lost Jurgen Klopp, about to embark on this kind of transitional process with Arne Slot coming in. They brought this new manager in and they didn't back him. And I remember saying, if I were Arne Slot, I'd be really disappointed by that. I know he came in and inherited a pretty good team and a pretty good squad. And he proved, didn't he, that just with a few tweaks and keeping some key players fit, Liverpool could be a real force again. And they were, and they went on and they won the Premier League and they only lost 2 games along the way. But, you know, you can't question their ambition, can you, this summer, based on what they've done already? You know, Florian Wirtz, the 2 fullbacks, Ekitike. And if they go and get Alexander Isak as well, just wow. Rumble says he tapped Newcastle for Anthony Gordon. Harry, would you take him? Yeah, I like Anthony Gordon. I think he's a good player. But if Newcastle lose Alexander Isak or are resigned to losing Alexander Isak and stand to generate a big bit of cash from him, are they going to entertain any offers for Anthony Gordon? I'm not sure. I've been calling this whole striker merry-go-round thing. You know, first Arsenal were on Sesko, and then they moved to Gyökeres, and then Isak wanted Liverpool as Liverpool unsettled him. And then that means that Newcastle complete the circle by then looking at Benjamin Sesko and all the rest of it. I called it fascinating. Ex-Avatar Legend on YouTube says, this is just sad for the Arsenal. I'm not going to be as extreme in my view as that. If Alexander Isak lands at Liverpool, will I be disappointed? Yes, because I think that he was the guy, you know, and I've said that for a while. He's the benchmark striker. He's the one that you want. But if Alexander Isak only wants Liverpool, if that conversation behind the scenes has taken place, if Arsenal have done their sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? If Arsenal have checked it, they've checked it, they've gone through intermediaries, they've contacted his representatives. He said he's not interested. If Newcastle have said they're not interested in a sale, Arsenal can't just sit there all summer and wait in case, something happens to unsettle Alexander Isak. Because Liverpool are the ones that have unsettled him. Therefore, that means he wants to go to Liverpool, surely. Now, would he have had a difficult decision to make had Arsenal come in and done what Liverpool done? Might have been a tougher decision, but Arsenal clearly weren't getting that message and obviously have settled on someone else right now. Listen, I'm not going to sit here having been really excited and sort of, positive about the Viktor Gyökeres signing just days later, slagging it off and saying, no, actually, we should have broken the bank to get Alexander Isak, because we didn't even think that was a possibility. So yeah, I'm not going down that road. Guna Instigator says, the thing is, where did the Sesko release clause come from? It was absolutely ridiculous. I don't really know what the kind of release clause situation is with Benjamin Sesko, because it was never really clarified. At one point, we heard it was like a certain amount, 60 million. Then it apparently went up based on some performance-related things. Then apparently, when he signed the new contract, it ended up changing in terms of its value, and then the way it needed to be paid or triggered would change. And it's all been very, very confusing. I don't know what his release clause looks like, but what we do know, based on the reports that we were reading, is that they were not willing to deal with us at anything less than 90 million euros. And that is a hell of a lot of money. And I do not blame Arsenal for 1 second for turning their attention elsewhere. Look, we've got the best Swedish striker in the Premier League now. Right. Gunnar Deja Vu says, I'm not sure how I feel about Sesko going to Newcastle. He feels more like an Arsenal style player. I mean, I was never as big as a lot of others on Benjamin Sesko, so I don't think it will hurt as much for me. It won't be that kick in the stomach as it might feel like for those that were really big on Benjamin Sesko and really did feel that he was the one for us. Charlton Ronald says perhaps Sesko will reach Isak levels or better in a year or two, and we'll be wanting him again. However, I am delighted by the arrival of Gyökeres. Yeah, but look, you can only make decisions based on what you can see at the time, right? You haven't got a crystal ball. Arteta hasn't got a crystal ball. Andrea Berta might have a crystal ball. I'm not sure. But you get where I'm going with it, right? You just don't know. You can't. Sometimes you got to just pick your man and go for it. And that's it. Marco says, Ben Jacobs said he's arriving tomorrow and doing his medical, then flying with Berta to Singapore. There you go. I've read a few different stories on when he's coming, where he's coming to, what he's going to be doing, etc., etc. So, if that's what Ben Jacobs is reporting, then let's take it that way. Roy says, Harry, do you think there could be a swap deal with Isak and Ekitike, like when Arsenal bought Clive Allen and then swapped him for Kenny Sansom? 62 days later, Newcastle were linked to Ekitike earlier. So what you're saying is that you think Liverpool might have gone and bought Hugo Ekitike so that they can sort of trade him for Alexander Isak? I don't think so. I think swap deals are just so uncommon these days. Bob Mark says, Alexander Isak is currently looking at houses in Cheshire, currently where Virgil van Dijk and several Liverpool players live. Is this real or is this a wind-up? Has Fabrizio Romano actually put that out? No way. Surely he hasn't. Hold on. I'm just going onto his page. No, he hasn't said that. Come on. Can't believe I even believed you for a second there. Yeah, no, come on. What else have we got? Gunnar Galactico took issue with me saying that we can't really get sucked in to this now, having done our business and sort of almost concluded our business. He says, sucked in, Liverpool get Isak and Arsenal won't stand a chance for 5 years. Add that to the fact they already have a better manager who plays better football. I'm not melting down about Alexander Isak going to Liverpool at this stage. A, it's not happened yet. And B, we don't know how it's going to go. Like, there's a very high probability that if he goes there, he improves them enough to make it very, very difficult for ourselves in Manchester City to topple them at the top of the Premier League, and maybe Chelsea if they're in the mix, or anybody else for that matter. I mean, what's going to happen to Newcastle? You know, if they keep failing to land primary targets and lose without doubt their best player, it's going to be interesting. I keep saying that. But what do you want me to do? You want me to sit here shouting and screaming because Liverpool are in there, and Liverpool have unsettled him and might well go back in and add him to the arrival of Hugo Ekitike already. What else have we got in the chat? Alexander says, great podcast, Harry. Great guests too. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much. I'll be honest with you guys, right? Over the summer, I never really know how the pod's going to go because transfer stuff, like, there's a lot of interest in it, which surprises me every year because a lot of it is speculation. A lot of it is hot air. A lot of it is discussing things that may never come to fruition. But I'm always blown away by the support that we get over the summer because the numbers are there and it's amazing. And I'm really humbled. Like, in a world where, you know, you don't really get positive feedback, I think people are much more likely to give you negative feedback than they are positive feedback. It's nice to read comments like that. So thank you very, very much. And listen, I was, you know, I've in the past, I've got into debates with people online and all the rest of it. And, you know, most of it's all good natured and stuff. And it's brilliant that we can all share and exchange views. But like, I'm realizing more and more as the years go on, as I get older and maybe wiser. And with me sort of expecting a third child as well within the next month or so, I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, I'm just really grateful for the amazing people that we've got here that support what I do. And I don't really need to get involved in things that I don't want to be involved in anymore. And when I say that, I don't mean like I'm high and mighty and don't need to do anything else. Of course, I'll do other things, but I mean in that, like, we've just got an amazing group of people here, and that's what it's all about, man. And look at the positive more than the negative. You know, I'm less inclined to sit and, you know, scroll through negative feedback that I get than I would have been 4 or 5 years ago. So there's a bit of growth there as well on my part, and that is thanks to you lot and the amazing support that we've got here as well. Some of you saying Isak is coming to Arsenal. Some of you are saying that he's coming in to play on the left wing and all the rest of it. Come on. Have a day off. It's not happening. Let's now I've said that, all the lovely comments are coming through. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. While you're all being incredibly nice to me, I will ask you, if you haven't done so already, to make sure that you leave a like on the video and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Turn the little bell on as well so that you get notifications of every time we go live or release a new episode. Thank you all for your continued support. Let's dive back into the chat for a few more minutes. Let's have a look. Lots of congratulations. Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much. I'm getting I'm not going to read this comment, but I'll put it on the screen for those of you that are watching. Oh, mate, it's amazing what you can achieve in a very short time. No, it's really lovely news. It was unexpected, but it's a blessing, isn't it? Kids are a blessing. So looking forward to it. The place is going to be chaos. There's no question about that. But luckily, I've got a very strong wife who's going to keep us all in check, as she always does. PJ says, always love your content, even if we disagree sometimes. That's what I love most, by the way, because if you agree with me, then of course you're going to be more positive in your outlook on our content. But if you disagree with me and you're still here, then that tells me that we're doing something right, in that we can have those debates and conversations, and it doesn't need to become like nasty or anything like that. Okay, let's roll on through. A Skywalker says, "I've been following you since the same old Arsenal days. Those were good days, man. I used to really enjoy doing that pod with guys. It's a shame that it came to an end, but yeah, I'm still in contact with most of them, and they're all doing brilliantly on an individual level as well, which is fantastic to see." Stephen says, "Harry, whilst I can slightly understand why you and most people would want Isak, Gyökeres has scored more goals last season. Even at international level, he scored more goals than Isak." Yeah, and listen, I think you can make a case that says that Viktor Gyökeres is the better fit and the answer for Arsenal, and that we've, in the end, having gone around the houses a little bit, having explored multiple options, to use a journo phrase, we have landed on the right guy. But Alexander Isak's got a bit of that magic and the X factor about him. And I know that people often look at statistics. And if you look at the statistics, look at the kind of baseline ones, really, like goals scored, Viktor Gyökeres is head and shoulders above pretty much everybody. But there's something about Alexander Isak that is just amazing, elegant, skillful, tricky. He's a real football man's footballer, if I say that, if that's even a thing. Can you say that? Listen, I said it at the beginning of the summer. Alexander Isak was my number one choice. I'm not going to now pretend that Viktor Gyökeres was my number one choice. But having gone through the journey we've gone through, having seen everything unfold the way it has, I'm happy with the signing of Viktor Gyökeres. And for that reason, I don't need to now be too revisionist and spend a load of time wondering what if we had signed Alexander Isak. There will be people out there that will look at that. And there will be people that feel that actually, Arsenal should have pushed harder on Isak, would have then got an answer with regards to whether or not he was willing to move earlier or move to us. He's obviously willing to move, but whether or not he'd be open to moving to us. And then we could have taken a diversion down the kind of Sesko or Gyökeres roads, whatever we wanted to do. I get that. But maybe Arsenal did. Maybe Arsenal did put the feelers out. Maybe Arsenal did contact Newcastle. Maybe they went to them via intermediaries. Maybe they went direct to Alexander Isak via intermediaries. The truth is, we don't know. I'm happy with the signing we've made, and so I'm not going to be too revisionist on this. But anyway, I think I am going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. I really, really do appreciate the love and support. I will see you all very, very soon on the next one. Don't forget to set it in your diaries. We'll be doing another watch along on Sunday. Yesterday's one went down so brilliantly. Wednesday's one. Honestly, I'm so humbled by the way that went and the support that we had. So thank you all so much for that. 12:30 on Sunday, the 27th of July, which means we'll be live from about 12:10. So come and join us. We'll build up to the game. We'll take you all the way through it, and we'll react to it a little bit later on Sunday evening as well. So loads of content coming your way. If you wanted to become a patron, if you thought about becoming a patron, if it's a consideration of yours, there's no better time than now, because we've got loads and loads of content coming. You get access to all our pods ad-free. Plus, you get the bonus stuff. The next bonus piece is dropping tomorrow. So there's loads coming your way. The link is in the description. And remember, the Mosquera episode is available to everyone for the next 24 hours. So go over and check that out. And that'll give you a good insight as to what we do on Patreon. And that might help you make your mind up whether or not you think it's worth signing up to. It's cheaper than a cup of coffee per month. So, yeah. Let me know. Right. I'll see you all soon. Until the next one, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful Thursday night. Goodbye up the